At Portugal Pathways, we receive lots of inquiries from international families who are mainly seeking support and putting a structure in place, one that offers continuality, flexibility, and future options without requiring disruption to existing life, business, or family situations, which obviously the Portuguese Golden Visa does allow. So Paul, can you talk a bit more about this, as you have lots of experience in supporting families in this position?
Yeah, Steve. I mean, the Golden Visa program in Portugal has evolved over the years. It was originally purely a program where you invested in property in the main. That stopped at the end of 2023. And the market has evolved significantly in terms of, it's more sophisticated. So there are now up to 50 different alternative investment funds across multiple sectors where you can invest in technology-based funds, renewables, hospitality, all funds that basically invest across a combination of funds, so you get some kind of diversification. And we're finding that a lot of the families that are coming now, it is very different. The profile of those families is changing slightly. So these are not necessarily people who are coming necessarily to move to the country full time, either ever or straight away. They're people that are looking for a plan B or a second passport. The kind of capital they have are probably higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago. They have a higher disposable income. Whereas prior to 2024, a lot of the people were coming for the Golden Visa with a view that they would eventually move to Portugal permanently. And that's still happening, but it's not as prevalent as it was, a year or so ago. The dynamics of the profile of the people has changed. And also, the world geopolitically has got more charged. So we are seeing people coming from all parts of the world where perhaps, the southwest of Europe, that is, away from any trouble and hasn't been involved in any conflicts for a very long time and is known as a safe place and all the rest of it. Portugal, has a reputation for bureaucracy, but ultimately, it is a very safe and stable place. Sometimes things take a little bit longer, and it has had challenges in terms of moving people through the process. But I do believe that we are starting to see some changes there on that. And obviously, we'll all be waiting to hear what comes out of government now the new president will be in place.
Lovely. Thank you, Paul. Henrique, obviously we're operating, as Paul just suggested, in a period of sort of global uncertainty, regulatory change, geopolitical tension, and obviously the shifting tax rules in many jurisdictions. Obviously, despite this, interest in Portugal's Golden Visa, as we just said, remains to be strong. So what do you think that gives people confidence in Portugal at the moment?
Of course. So thank you, Steve. Well, first of all, I think that the fact that people can get a second residency in Portugal and a pathway to an European passport just by staying 7 days in Portugal is something that is really beneficial, and it's an advantage for everyone. And then with the world going so radical, with everything going so extreme, I don't know, in the United States, in the Middle East, I think that people keep within all this madness. Portugal is still a peaceful place, a stable place where people do respect the law. It's what we call a state of law. So you have a moderate right-wing government that is in favor of business and in favor of the Golden Visa. You have the courts work. So whenever things are taking too long or whenever rights are challenged somehow, people go to court and the courts do work. So it's basically, I would say that what makes Portugal that interesting, it's of course having an ongoing golden visa, which is the one in comparison with the other ones that is more easier to get the citizenship, the Portuguese passport. And then it's of course a stable country with a moderate right-wing government and with institutions that work. So it's still a stable place where people know that their rights are going to be accomplished. Basically, I would that's what I would say.
Lovely. And Paul, I know you alluded to it obviously in previously, but what do you think also makes sort of Portugal stand out?
I think it's the flexibility. If you look at all of the other golden visa programs, they predominantly require you to stay there. So there's a couple of people in the chat saying, can we talk about D visas today? I mean, today is golden visas, but in reality, a D visa requires you to stay in the country 183 days. It requires you to become tax status. And for some people, that doesn't fit. You know, in Italy, you've got to make commitments to the country straight away, and they include life and tax related things. Whereas Portugal's golden visa is renowned for the fact that you only have to be in country 7 days a year or 14 days in every 2 years. And you can keep renewing it. So we've got Malaysian families that can't have a second passport that want to just keep renewing the thing every 2 years. So different people for different things is what I would say. And the flexibility and how long that's going to take. Now, obviously, prior to 2024, there was this backlog. So there are people that are going through the process still. That what we're seeing with the catch up with AIMA and all that, and that does need to get sorted for those people. But post 2024, what we've seen, the majority of people. Because it linked to the date of their application, not when they not when they got the cards. Those people have seen a much better, and we're hopeful that when this all goes back to Parliament, those people prior to 24 will get some comfort. But the people joining now have not seen those same set of challenges that happened prior to that.
Yeah,
thank you.
I would just I was going to develop this in a while just to complete what Paul was saying. It's exactly that. When you compare that's what was a little bit what I said. When you compare the Portuguese golden visa with the other golden visas, when it comes to granting the citizenship in Portugal, not only you don't need to live here, as you don't need to have tax residency, okay? And we keep receiving positive decisions of the citizenship requests every week. If you start looking at the Spanish golden visa or at the Italian golden visa or other golden visas in Europe, it's true that it's a little bit, the requirements for you to get the citizenship are tougher in the sense that you either need to live there a little bit before, or you need to have tax residency. So that's why I was also saying that from when you start comparing with the other golden visas, the Portuguese golden visa, it's clearly the one that is ahead when it comes to get the Portuguese passport.
No, thanks, then, great. Paul, just going back and sort of building on what you were saying, could you also sort of touch briefly onto the broader economic and sector backdrops in Portugal and why this context matters when people are considering residency along with investment?
Yeah, I mean, the Portugal Golden Visa program started, I think, 2012, was it, Henrique? I think
2012, the Portuguese Golden Visa.
2012. And, initially, it was a new thing and it evolved. And but what we're actually seeing now is it's much more established. And because of Portugal, if you go back then, Portugal, was not in a good place after the financial crash, in the 10, 15 years ago. And Portugal's rise over the last 5 years, particularly, has, it's quite remarkable. And the Portugal's Golden Visa program, there was a report out only a few months ago by the World Digital Foundation stating that I think 9 billion already invested through golden visas had a wider impact to the Portuguese economy of 54 billion and 20,000 jobs. And Portugal, the renowned Economist magazine internationally named it Economy of the Year last year. And for a small economy like Portugal to be outperforming GDP for established G8 countries like Germany, France, the UK, Italy, just shows how far Portugal has come. It's still got the growing pains and things that go with that level of growth. But the amount of talent and money that's coming to Portugal is remarkable. And we see it every day in our inbox. Some of the level of wealth and talent that's coming to Portugal. Whereas in 2012, it was much more retiree based rather than talent based.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. We're just going to put another quick poll onto the screen. If you wouldn't mind just taking a quick look at it, because again, it just gives us a little bit more context in terms of what matters most to you when it comes to, the primary reason that you're considering the Portuguese Golden Visa. So if you can just take a quick look at that, and then we'll come back to the poll results and discuss, one or two of the more sort of popular answers within that. So sort of turning back to the structure itself in terms of the Golden Visa, Henrik, the most popular route now is obviously what we've been talking about, which is the 500,000 euro regulated fund investment route. From a legal perspective, what should applicants understand about how these funds are structured, governed and regulated?
So what the most important part is that we are talking about a regulated market with a regulator. So if the funds are approved for Golden Visa purposes, they were checked before, and it's completely under the observation of the regulator. I would advise. I think it's important because you have too many funds nowadays in the market. It's important to choose trusted partners like Portugal Pathways. Because you do have a good Golden Visa index of all the visas eligible for Golden Visa purposes. And I think it's important then to try to check, it's important to see funds that are in accordance with the risk profile of each investor, because each investor has its own risk profile, and then try to choose a sector or area, because you have funds investing in renewable energy, you have funds investing in companies, you have funds investing in hospitality, you have many different funds. So profile risk, and then trying to choose a sector that the investor also feels more familiar with. Okay. Apart from this, always trying to choose the funds in which the fund in which the investor are going to invest with trusted partners that guide through that choice, to that option.
Lovely, thank you. And Paul, obviously Henrik just alluded to it. So how does Portugal Pathways support international families, investors when it comes to choosing the right fund for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's always important to highlight that everybody where they're making investments should always seek independent professional financial advice and make sure that any investments they make are aligned to their risk profiles, not being sold by the market. But there's two types of main funds. You've got open funds and closed funds, closed funds are ones where you're investing in sectors or multi-sectors where, you're investing in private companies. So in renewables, in media, in tech, in healthcare, etc. And that's where the majority of investments go. And if you look at the J-curve of growth, that's what's driving Portugal's future, ultimately, are some of those sectors. The other is the public markets, which are open funds, where you're investing in Portuguese stocks and bonds. Now, the Portugal stock market is a very small market cap compared with, say, the FTSE or the Nasdaq and things like that. So whilst it's mainly energy and banks, effectively, there are a few extra other companies in there, but I think there's 20 public companies. So some people go in open funds because they feel that they can invest and get liquidity, because if it's a stock market, you can sell them the next day. The only challenge with that, it invalidates your golden visa, because the government requires you through the CMVM regulators that you hold the investment for the process until you're ready, perhaps to either renew or to go for citizenship. But if you take the money out, then it slightly defeats the object of doing it. So some people choose that because that has that liquidity element. But most funds, it closed or are there for 7 to 8 years. And if you take the cycle of a traditional alternative investment fund, it would be 10 years, 3 years of investment, 3 years of farming, and 3 years of exiting. So 7 to 8 years isn't a long hold period for a fund, because you've got to allow the thing to evolve to create that J curve. So you get those combinations. Some people prefer to go in closed funds. Some people like a combination of closed and open funds, so you can invest in more than one fund. We don't see many go beyond 2 because it adds an extra amount of complexity and paperwork. But 1 or 2 funds is quite common.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So we just have a quick look at the polls. I don't know if Paul and Henry, you can see the polls, and there's, as I said, one quite clear winner, which is obviously flexibility to spend time in Europe. And that probably goes back to what we were saying about, obviously the geopolitical unrest and people wanting to have that opportunity to spend time in Europe. But Paul, is that sort of reflective of what you're seeing and hearing from families?
Yeah, I mean, the poll, I say clear winner, it's 64%. So that's, I think the highest other percentage was 9% for diversification of investment outside of country. So it's a very high percentage. So flexibility, we talked about it earlier. You're putting a potential passport in your family's pocket for the future. You're also giving yourself flexibility. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to have a more mobile-based life with your family, then having access to the European Schengen region through the golden visa and to be able to come and go is very attractive to a lot of people. And also, I think the tax thing, whilst people might not be ready to or may never wish to change tax jurisdiction, having that flexibility that at some point you could evolve to it, because there are other tax incentives out there like the IFICI tax regime that may fit someone's profile, but it might not fit it now. It might fit it in 3 or 4 years' time. That flexibility and that having the ability to have a plan B. And the second one highest on here was diversification and investment considerations of residency. In America, a lot of money has been tied up in America with the magnificent 7 stocks of Apple and Google and so on. But in reality, the European markets over the last 6 to 12 months have been outperforming. And because of the impact on the dollar, having some diversification in Europe of your assets is potentially a very positive thing. I've had at least half a dozen over the last 4 or 5 months where clients have said, well, how putting stuff in private equity in Portugal and Europe, how safe is that? I've got a lot of stocks in America or UK or wherever, and we're not selling it. But then when we got on with their own advisors, they've said, well, actually, this is a good strategy. Why would you have everything tied up in one market when the world is changing and, is outperforming at the moment? Nobody can predict completely the future, but it's on a trajectory. The dollar is coming down. Interest rates in Europe are lower than most of the rest of the world, and also Portugal in particular, in 6 or 7 sectors is outperforming a lot of different places. And whilst even property isn't part of the golden visa investment, a lot of investors after they invest in one of the funds, quite often invest in property. And if they've done that in the last 6 to 12 months, they would have seen, double-digit growth and more. I think there was a report out last week saying that in January alone, the luxury property market went up by 13% in 1 month, which is, there's good and bad to that, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
I would.
So Henrik, again, looking at the polls.
Let me just add something. Sorry, Steve, because I didn't.
I was going to invite you to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt Paul. Regarding the flexibility to spend time in Europe, I think it's just useful to say the following. So it's true. So the Golden Visa gives a second residency in Portugal and freedom of movement within the Schengen area for periods up to 90 days. But the truth is, this rule of the 90 days in each period of 6 months, as it is forbidden to control borders within the Schengen area, we have many, but really many clients, mostly Americans, but many clients living in between Lisbon and Ibiza, or Lisbon and Paris, with a Portuguese Golden Visa. So it's true that it gives you an effective flexibility to spend time in Europe, even if this specific rule of the 90 days exists. Regarding the diversification, I also wanted to add this, of course, that not only Portugal is stable and everything that Paul said that it is interesting. I would just add that people who have been investing in the last 5-6 years since this modality of Golden Visa exists are actually making money out of the investments they make in the funds, which I think it's important to add. It was just this.
Okay, thanks for stepping in, Henrik. Thank you. So, Paul, let's sort of talk about and touch on timing. Is there such a thing as the perfect time to apply, or is it more about just sort of readiness than timing?
Well, I mean, it's about people's own goals. It depends where their life is, where their families are. We talked about the geopolitical. I was on a call with a chap, a very senior guy at one of the major oil companies in the world, and they'd spent 5 or 10 years in Europe. But they were very worried because they had children of a gender that, didn't necessarily fit with where the political direction was going. And they didn't want to have their family in a position of that much risk. And they decided to get a golden visa for themselves and their family. But they actually, in the end, because they could afford it, bought 3 golden visas for family and friends, because they had emanated 100 years earlier. Some of their family were living original family originated from Germany and ended up in America, and that they just want that security and safety that they don't necessarily feel they're getting where they are.
Lovely, thank you. I think that the last poll showed us that there's a bit of diversification across what people was putting at the top of their agendas. So we got another poll because I think it's quite interesting to really understand what the audience are putting at the top of their lists. And again, a quick poll will go up again, and again we'll come back to it in a minute. So this one is all around which aspect of the Golden Visa do you find hardest to access confidently? So again, if you wouldn't mind just filling that in, and again, we'll come back to those more popular answers in a minute. Henrik, we also have to sort of quickly touch on any updates regarding the nationality law. Can you give us a brief overview on where we are? And we'd like to sort of hear your opinion on the recent sort of presidential result.
Okay, now, well, let me go to a few steps back, because I don't know exactly. We have here more than 30 people. I don't know if everyone is aware. So we have been having a legal amendment that was on its way. The document was sent to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court issued a ruling in the end of December, saying that some of the rules were unconstitutional, mainly the ones regarding the loss of citizenship in the case of commitment of certain crimes. And right now we are just waiting. So we had presidentials with 2 rounds. During the presidentials, nothing happens. So right now we are just waiting for the discussion to go back to the parliament. And once it starts again in the parliament, we'll have a final document to be once again approved by the president. What I want to say to everyone is that we don't know, of course, what is going to be the final outcome, but worst case scenario, we are always talking about 10 years of legal residency required for the Portuguese citizenship, counting from the first card. Okay, so 10 years of legal residency counting from the first card. It can't go further than this, and this is what we are expecting. Having this said, as we touched base a while ago, this doesn't mean that the investment needs to be capped for the 10 years. This would mean that the investment will need to be kept. There's already a common understanding around it, at least for 7 years, which would be the time that you need to ask for the permanent residency, okay? 6-7 years. So right now, where we at, we are waiting for the discussions to restart again in the parliament. But before the discussions restart regarding the citizenship law, they will still need to discuss the labor law amendments, we still have a few weeks, if not month ahead, 1 month and a half possibly ahead before having a new law taking into force. Regarding the presidentials, well, thanks God, André Ventura didn't win. Okay, thanks God, the head of our populist radical right wing did not win the elections. We have a new president, António José Seguro, super moderate, super sane, with a balanced view over things. So I think we are good. It would have been terrible if the other president would have won. So actually, on that part, we are quite good.
Lovely, thank you, Henrik. So obviously, our Portugal Pathways team will continue to sort of monitor the news and any changes, and we'll be updating our community through webinars, our newsletters, and articles. So again, if you want to keep up to date with that kind of thing, you'll be able to, because obviously registering for this webinar will allow us to communicate with you through sort of our newsletters, etc. So let's move on and look at these sort of poll results. So again, the question was, which aspect of the golden visa do you find hardest to access confidently? And we have a sort of a three-way tie, really, in terms of the most popular answers. So, I mean, choosing the right golden visa eligible investment is one that I know, because I talk to a lot of investors, looking at the various funds. So, Paul, just maybe go into a little bit more detail on what the index shows people and the confidence maybe it gives them from an investment perspective.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the index just breaks down, up to 30 of the major funds that take the majority of investment for golden visa in Portugal, and it can take you through what the fee structure is, what their track record is, what sectors they're in, how they're performing, in terms of their reporting structures. Like Americans, it's very important because they're taxed on their worldwide income, that the fund, has QEF reporting, which, makes sure that then Americans are in the best position in terms of tax back in their home country, because, they're taxed on their worldwide income. So, that needs to be important. But, even in terms of people's projections, nobody can guarantee the future. So a projection is still a projection. But if you look at their track record and you look at the sectors and you look at the profile, you can start to build up a picture with your professional advisors and lawyers in terms of, what's the best fit for you, and getting that down into a short list so that you can hopefully find the right type of investment for you and your family.
Thank you. And Henrik, and another one of the something we haven't actually touched on that's come out within this poll is sort of understanding the timelines and the process. So could you just give a brief sort of overview on what the process looks like and how long on average the process takes?
Well, how long on average each process takes? It's quite difficult. Okay, the process it's quite easy to understand. How long it will take? It's at this moment really difficult to say. Why? Because after being right now, it's getting better for you to have for you to understand. We just received notifications of people who filed the golden visa 3 months ago, so it's getting quicker. But I think that you should never expect less than 1 year, 1 year and a half, until the moment you get the golden visa. But disregarding the timeline, the process it's quite easy to understand. Okay, the process it's really easy to understand. You need to have a Portuguese tax ID. You open a bank account. You make the investment through a bank account. You need to have an investment completed before being able to file for the golden visa. We gather all the personal documents, criminal records, birth certificates, marriage certificates. We gather that with the investment documents proving that the 500,000 were invested, and we file it online. After this, the applicant and their families are going to be called for the biometrics, which is actually the first time they will need to come to Portugal. And after this, 3-4 months later, the card should be issued. Why do I say that the timeline is not that important? And there was on the Q&A, there's a question about this. If by any chance, I do think that it's going to get better because it's becoming better each and every day. But most of the people, what they want to have, it's an ongoing alternative with a pathway for citizenship. So in those cases, it's not that relevant if it's going to take 1 year or 1 year and a half. Okay. What I would suggest in those cases is we may ask for a golden visa, and if by any chance it's taking longer than that the individuals were expecting, we can ask for a different type of visa. Okay, we can ask for a D7, we can ask for a D9, which is a digital nomad visa. We can ask for a different type of visa. That is, all of these that I'm mentioning are issued by the consulate in 3 months. So we can issue for a different type of visa at the consulate while we are waiting for the golden visa, that it may take a little bit longer. Okay. But regarding the process, it's quite easy to understand. It's exactly what I said. Timelines might be a little bit more difficult, or at least to predict, but schedule a call with us. And if necessary, what we can do, and we are doing with lots of clients, as you know, Steve, we may ask for a D7 or a D9 at the same time we are asking for the golden visa and waiting for the golden visa. Why does this matter? Because let me try to summarize without bothering you all with technicalities. All the D visas demand D7, D9, all the visas that not the golden visa demand that the applicant is not absent from Portugal more than 6 months in a row or 8 months in total, if they do it in different periods. Okay. This means that if the applicants are not going to be living here and they are going to be absent for more than 6 months in a row or 8 months in total, they need to ask for the golden visa. But if by any chance they want to start counting for the citizenship as soon as possible while they are waiting for the golden visa, we may ask for a D7 and a D9 or a whatever. And even if you are not going to comply with the minimum stay requirement, when you get to the end of the second year, which is basically the moment you should renew the D7 or the D9, and the moment that authorities are going to check if you comply with the minimum stay requirements, you will already have the golden visa, which means that you would not need to renew the D7 or the D9. Okay, so process is quite easy to understand. Timelines are a little bit more difficult to predict, but we have ways of making sure that it starts counting as soon as possible, matching a golden visa with a different type of visa asked at the consulate. I don't know if this answered to the question, Steve.
Yeah, no, that sort of laid out that sort of plan B, which you said is a consideration for many a golden visa investor. That safety net.
I would just regarding at this, so legal and regulated certainty, we already spoke here. Family eligibility and dependence. I'm not sure. May I speak just for 2 or 3 seconds about it? I think it's important because it's one of the main reasons why people are looking for the Portugal's golden visa. So for you to understand that any children, even if they are more than 18, okay, any children that are considered dependent of the main applicant or the spouse can be included in the golden visa. Okay, if they are less than 18, it's easy. We just need to use the birth certificate. If they are more than 16, we add the criminal record and it's done. If they are more than 18, we need to prove dependence through two things. We need to demonstrate that the children are single and that they are enrolled as full-time students. And when I say this, it doesn't matter if they are 28, it doesn't matter if they are 31. I have family members, children, with 20, 28 and 31 years old. This is real and they are approved. As long as we demonstrate that they are single, not married, and enrolled as full-time students, being the main applicant or the spouse, the responsible for the payment of tuition fees, they can be eligible for golden visa purposes, okay? Finalizing this matter, also the parents can be included with no proof of dependent relationship if they are more than 65. So if your parents of the main applicant or the spouse are more than 65, we can add them. We just need to add the birth certificate that proves that they are more than 65, and they can be included this way. This also works for civil partnership. If by any chance the spouse is not married, but they have a civil partnership, meaning that they have ways and documents of showing that they have been living together for more than 2 years, we can also add to the family unification request of the golden visa. So I think it's this. I think I was clear now. Do you?
Yeah. No, that is clear. I think we've got a couple of questions related to that in the Q&A as well.
I know. I have a few. Were we going to the Q&A?
Yeah. So I just want to sort of remind the audience. Obviously, the questions are coming in. If we don't get to all of the questions, then the team will reach out. And again, we've been putting up links to book a discovery call either with a Portugal Pathway golden visa expert or with Enrique and his team. So again, let's have a quick look at these Q&A questions.
I was looking while you were speaking, Steve. May I answer briefly to 2 or 3 the main questions that I see in the Q&A?
Of course.
So one of the questions initially asked right in the beginning of the call was, should I ask for a D7 while I'm waiting for the golden visa, which we already discussed in the meantime, and the answer is straightforward, yes. Okay. So while you are waiting, while anyone is waiting for the golden visa, if by any chance you want to spend more time in Portugal or you want the time to start counting for citizenship purposes, yes, you can and you should ask for a D7, a D9, or a different type of visa while you wait for the golden visa. We know that you are not going to comply with the minimum stay requirements, but the idea is that when you get to the second year, which would be the time that you would need to renew the D7, you would already have the golden visa, so you would not need to renew the golden visa. This was the first question I saw. Second question from Hussein, a list of type of visas, costs. Like this is too generic, Ghulam Hussein. I'm sorry if I'm not saying correctly. I would suggest that you book a call with Portugal Pathways, and that and that you discuss with us exactly what your needs are, what are you looking for, because we cannot send you a list of all the visas, all the costs. This needs to be tailor-made and needs to be discussed individually. So I would suggest that this person in particular schedules a call with Portugal Pathways. Finally, from what I saw, I don't know if there are any others after, but someone was asking. So someone got the Sephardi, the citizenship to the Sephardi modality, and they are already applied for the kids. What they asked for was that it would be possible to ask for a golden visa while they are waiting for the citizenship decision. And the answer is yes. You may ask for a golden visa or any other visa while you're waiting for the citizenship request based on the Sephardi roots. And this, Steve, were the... Ghulam Hussein. Ghulam Hussein. Oh my God, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Ghulam. So your children needs to be over. No, any children can be included. Any children can be included, no matter which age they are. Okay. What I was saying was that if they are more than 18, you need to prove dependence relationship by demonstrating that they are single and that they are enrolled as full-time students. But there is no limit. There is no age limit. Okay, there is no age limit. But after 18, when they are more than 18, you need to prove the dependent relationship through this two things: being unmarried, being single, and being enrolled as full-time students.
Okay,
I don't know if you're seeing any other questions.
Yeah, there's one here that I think is quite important, just to sort of clarify this one. This is from Maggie, and she's talking about the investment time. And she's showing, obviously, if this 10-year thing goes through, does the capital have to stay in the fund for the full 10 years?
Okay, no, it's a really pertinent question. So in principle, it will pass through for the 10 years. Okay, let's see what happens. But just for people to understand that in principle, we will have the 10 years counting from the first card. But the clients are still interested. The golden visa can be renewed for as long as you want. And the citizenship, so the goals will be achieved anyway. It will delay it a little bit only. There is already a common understanding that you do not need to keep the investment for the 10 years. Okay, you need to keep the investment until the moment you get the permanent residency. What does this mean? Once you get to the 5th year of a golden visa, you may ask for the permanent residency. Okay, right now the golden visa applicants are not being able to ask when you get to the 5th year, but when you get to the renewal, we didn't spoke about renewal. So with the golden visa needs to be renewed every 2 years. So every 2 years you will need to renew the golden visa. When you get to the 3rd renewal in the 6th year, you will already have completed the 5 years of legal residency. So when you get to the 6th year, you can ask for a permanent residency, which is valid for 5 years. Okay, so you ask for a permanent residency at the 6th year. When you get to the 10th year, you ask for citizenship, and you will not renew the permanent residency because the citizenship will be already ongoing, which means that no, you don't need to keep the investment up to the 10th year. Well, unless you're making money out of it and you prefer to keep it, of course, you need to keep the investment until the moment you get the permanent residency, which would be after the 5 years, in principle, 6 at the 6th year of golden visa.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, Henry. Conscious that obviously we're approaching the hour mark, so there's another one here. Just to clarify, so Tony's asking, so once I get the golden visa, do I have to renew it every year?
No. Okay, exactly. Good. It's what I was saying. No, it's every 2 years. Every 2 years, but when you get you need to renew it at the end of the 2nd year. You have to renew it at the end of the 4th year, and you have to renew it at the end of the 6th year. At the 6th year, what you are going to do is you are going to ask for a permanent residency, which is valid for 5 years. Okay, so basically you will need to renew 3 times before you ask for the Portuguese citizenship, not every year.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. So again, just before we wrap up, as I said, we'll obviously reach out to everybody if we haven't got to the questions. But just before we finish, I'd really just like to ask both Henry and Paul for one sort of final sort of takeaway, just something that you would think that is important for our audience to understand. So Paul, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the main takeaway that I would suggest is make sure you talk to trusted partners, that you know, if you reach out to Portugal Pathways, we work with many immigration law firms, many tax firms, many IFAs, private banks, private schools, and we index all of them. So when you work with trusted partners, you get to align, you know, what you want to achieve to your goals. And we're agnostic, but we sit with the families, you know, long beyond, you know, their golden visa, you know, into life, into other investments. And it's really about having, being part of a trusted community and going with people that have been on this journey and hearing from others. So time spent planning is really important, and start those conversations. There's no cost to getting on a call with us or any of our partners initially. It's only if you instruct anybody. So plan early and start those conversations, and don't listen to what's on Reddit and Facebook and all the rest of it. Talk to people that know what's going on, not subjective noise on the internet.
Thank you, Paul. Henry?
No, I would just add. So first of all, because we have been listening to this question many times, just for everyone to understand, I know that Steve told it in the introduction. So, but I'm the immigration partner at CMS, which is a firm that started as an English and German law firm. Nowadays, it's spread all over the world. Just for you to understand, I work with Portugal Pathways, who are partners. I don't work for Portugal Pathways, okay? It's just for you to understand that I'm an independent lawyer, and you can always count with our independent vision, but we work really close with Portugal Pathways, and the idea is that you feel supported along the way. Having this said, I think I would just add that with the world going completely crazy and with the world, it's true that in many, as I said in the beginning of the conversation, I think it's important to have an alternative or a second passport, just to have an option, okay? And in that sense, Portugal, it's indeed a good option, because only with 7 days per year you can have an ongoing alternative that will give you access to a Portuguese passport a few years later. And I think that this is the main topic. Most of the clients we have been receiving nowadays are Americans. It's true, some from the UK, but most of them Americans, or from other countries that are in transition stages. If you do want to have a second residency, or as the Americans say, an ongoing alternative, the Portuguese Golden Visa is without any kind of doubt the program that you should follow and the alternative that you should choose in order to achieve that goal.
Lovely. Thank you, Henrik. So it just really leaves me to say a big thank you to the audience. Thank you for sort of staying with us. We will be sending out a recording of this if you wanted to go over it again. And as I said, the team at Portugal Pathways will reach out to anybody that we didn't get round to from a question perspective. Big thank you to Henrik for battling through the traffic, and always a big thank you to Paul. Just to let everybody know that our next webinar, which is just popping on your screen now, is all around investing in Portugal in 2026 and is on March the 3rd. So again, I think a colleague will be putting the link up. But again, if you want to look at our future events, or again, anything Golden Visa or anything Portugal, please visit our website, which is Portugal Pathways.io. And again, on there would be all of the registration links to future webinars, recordings of past webinars, and again, you'll be able to sign up and see our newsletters. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Henrik.
Steve, sorry, I know that we were finishing. Let me just add something because of the Q&A. One question that it's important. Someone is asking here is if IMA is improving their processes. I just wanted to add that the new government took place mid next year, March, April next year, beginning of last year. And just for everyone to be informed that, yes, IMA is clearly improving the processes. Things are getting better, and this government is trying to clean the house and make IMA work as it was working before. Okay, so things are actually, and this is, I'm being the more honest that I can. IMA, it's really improving their processes, and things are getting faster. Okay, so it should be working regularly in 1 year or so, we hope.
Lovely. Thank you for clarifying, Henrik. So, thanks for joining, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.